he hugged the cat. A minute later, something unexpected happened. The air in the sanctuary's observation room was thick with the heavy, humid promise of rain. The sky outside a bruised canvas of deep violet and charcoal. Inside, beneath the flickering hum of a single fluorescent bulb, a man named Elias knelt on the scuffed linoleum floor, wrapping his arms around a massive, deeply scarred rescue Maine Coon named Arthur. Usually, a cat of Arthur's traumatic background would instinctively recoil from such total confinement, driven by the survival imperative to always maintain a clear escape route. Instead, something entirely unexpected unfolded. Arthur did not stiffen, nor did he attempt to scratch his way to freedom. A minute later, the giant feline shifted his considerable weight, wrapped his thick, sunset-colored front legs tightly around Elias's neck, and pressed his ear firmly against the center of the man's left ribcage. Arthur let out a sound that shattered the quiet, a low, guttural, rhythmic keening that resonated like a physical vibration through the cramped space, a desperate frequency that completely defied natural feline behavior. He was not trying to comfort the man, he was trying to restrain him, digging his blunt claws into Elias's canvas jacket with an iron grip, his amber eyes wide with an alien, palpable terror. The acidic scent of pure panic suddenly cut through the room's dusty, cedar-tinged air. But it was not coming from the cat. It was coming from the pores of the man he was holding hostage. Before we dive into the depths of Elias and Arthur's miraculous story and uncover the terrifying reality of what the cat heard inside that room, we warmly invite you to become part of our storytelling family. If you find yourself captivated by the deep, unspoken bonds between humans and animals, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We would also love to feel the global heartbeat of our community. Leave a comment below telling us exactly where in the world you are watching from right now and what time it is there as we continue this journey into the profound mysteries of nature. To truly understand the gravity of that desperate, suffocating embrace, one must first understand the delicate architecture of trust that had been built over 3 painstaking years. The sanctuary, nestled deep within the misty emerald grip of the Pacific Northwest, was a remote haven for broken things. The air here always smelled intensely of damp earth, crushed pine needles, and the sharp, metallic tang of cold mountain streams. When Arthur first arrived, he was a creature of absolute fury and shadow, pulled from the hollowed-out, charred remnants of a devastating barn fire. Back then, his matted fur smelled of stale ash and the acidic rot of profound neglect. He was practically feral, trusting no one, his coat a jagged terrain of coarse, sun-baked wire. Elias, a quiet, broad-shouldered man carrying his own heavy, unspoken grief from a lifetime of sudden personal losses, recognized the silent scream in the cat's defensive posture. Elias never forced contact. He simply sat in the enclosure day after day, the morning light slicing through the wire mesh in sharp, golden geometric patterns, reading quietly while the silver frost melted off the wooden platforms. Slowly, the gap closed. The moment Arthur first willingly pressed his warm, rough nose against Elias's calloused knuckles felt like a seismic shift in the universe. Over the years, that tentative touch blossomed into a profound, symbiotic bond. They became mirrors of one another, communicating in the subtle twitches of whiskers, the slow blinks in the fading twilight, and the shared, comfortable silences that tasted of hot black coffee and dried salmon treats. But in the grueling weeks leading up to the gathering storm, a chilling deterioration began to unravel their peaceful sanctuary. It did not start with Elias, but rather with Arthur, who plunged into a sudden, inexplicable physical and emotional decline. The majestic cat stopped eating entirely, his previously thick, sunset-colored fur losing its vibrant luster and taking on a dusty, lifeless texture. He paced his enclosure with a frantic, obsessive energy, his claws clicking rhythmically and relentlessly against the cold, concrete floor. The sanctuary's veterinary team, highly trained experts in feline behavior and physiology, were utterly baffled by the regression. The sterile examination rooms, smelling sharply of rubbing alcohol and bleached cotton, became the stage for a growing, palpable desperation. Blood panels, X-rays, and ultrasounds were analyzed under the harsh, unyielding glare of surgical lights, but every single metric came back completely normal. Yet Arthur was visibly wasting away, his breathing constantly shallow, his eyes darting at unseen ghosts in the corners of the room. The sanctuary director, observing the cat through the one-way glass, noted a profound, agonizing sorrow in Arthur's frantic demeanor. At the same time, Elias was pushing himself harder than ever to comfort his fading friend. Elias looked perpetually drained, a sickly, translucent pallor clinging to his cheeks, his own scent changing to something vaguely sweet and metallic, the invisible, insidious perfume of profound bodily fatigue. The experts assumed Arthur was reacting to a hidden environmental toxin, isolating the cat further, which only exacerbated the feline's agonizing distress. The situation was spiraling into a catastrophic failure of understanding. The more they tried to clinically cure the cat, the faster he seemed to slip away into the shadows. The absolute truth of the crisis remained entirely invisible to the human eye until that heavy, thunderous afternoon in the observation room. When Elias knelt down, his own vision suddenly swimming with dark, encroaching spots, and pulled Arthur into his chest for what he thought might be a final goodbye, the cat's desperate keening reached a fever pitch. A minute later, the unexpected reality shattered their tragic illusion. Arthur wasn't sick. Arthur had never been sick. As Arthur pressed his ear against Elias's ribs, refusing to let go, the heavy wooden door of the observation room swung open, and the head veterinarian stepped in to check on them. Before the vet could even speak, Elias's eyes rolled back in his head. His breathing hitched, producing a wet, terrifying rattle in the back of his throat, and he collapsed forward, a dead weight against the cold linoleum. The hidden truth was terrifyingly clear. Elias was in the midst of a massive, catastrophic cardiac event. Arthur, possessing the hypersensitive acoustic physiology of a predatory feline, a creature capable of hearing the microscopic rustle of a mouse in deep snow from 50 yards away, had been listening to Elias's heart. For weeks, the cat had been hearing the turbulent, irregular flow of blood pushing dangerously through severely blocked arteries. The frantic pacing, the refusal to eat, the acidic scent of panic. Arthur was experiencing extreme referred trauma, screaming into the void about a fatal mechanical flaw in his human's chest that no human medical machine had yet detected. In that final hug, Arthur heard the catastrophic fibrillation begin, the chaotic, fluttering rhythm of a failing human engine, and he used his entire body weight in a desperate, instinctual bid to keep his human grounded, howling to summon the very people he usually avoided. The chaotic aftermath was a terrifying blur of blaring ambulance sirens, the sharp, burning smell of ozone from the defibrillator paddles, and the frantic, rhythmic chest compressions that ultimately saved Elias's life. But the true resolution of their story did not occur in the sterile, constantly beeping confines of the intensive care unit. It happened 2 agonizingly long months later, on a crisp morning where the first biting edge of autumn frost coated the sanctuary grass in a brittle, diamond-like sheen. Elias, significantly thinner but walking with a renewed, steady lightness, finally re-entered Arthur's outdoor enclosure. The massive Maine Coon was waiting on his favorite sun-warmed cedar perch, bathed in the soft, golden light of dawn. There was no hesitation between them. Elias sat down heavily, leaning his back against the rough, peeling bark of the climbing tree. Arthur descended immediately, moving with the liquid grace of his fully recovered health, his fur once again a brilliant, soft cascade of sunset orange. The great cat climbed directly onto Elias's lap, curling his massive frame gently against the man's newly scarred chest. Elias closed his eyes, resting his chin delicately on the cat's broad head. For a long, transcendent moment, the only sound in the forest was their synchronized breathing. In, out. The steady rise and fall of the man's surgically repaired heartbeat perfectly matched the deep, resonant, rumbling purr of the cat resting above it. The lingering tension, the phantom, acidic memory of the hospital, the icy fear of death, the months of agonizing miscommunication melted away into the cool morning air, replaced entirely by the profound, grounding scent of warm fur and damp pine. They had saved each other, completing a circle of survival that wholly transcended human logic. This story leaves us standing on the precipice of a profound philosophical realization about the natural world we inhabit. For centuries, humanity has stubbornly positioned itself at the absolute apex of intelligence and emotional depth, often treating animal intuition as mere biological programming or survival mechanics. Yet, Elias and Arthur's harrowing ordeal demands that we look much deeper into the eyes of the creatures we share this planet with. It forces us to acknowledge that animals possess a complex, deeply resonant language of empathy that operates on frequencies we are frequently too arrogant or too digitally distracted to hear. It suggests that love, rather than being a uniquely human philosophical abstraction, is a tangible, physical force, a literal sixth sense capable of bridging the vast evolutionary divide. Arthur did not just clinically sense a biological anomaly, he processed it with a deep, agonizing emotional weight that nearly broke him. He carried the terrifying burden of his human's impending mortality when the human himself was entirely unaware of the ticking clock inside his own chest. This challenges the very boundaries of what we define as consciousness, reminding us that we are intimately, inextricably tethered to the creatures we claim to protect. Sometimes we must realize they are the ones keeping silent, desperate watch over the fragile rhythmic ticking of our own fragile lives. As the shadows lengthen across the sanctuary and the extraordinary story of Elias and Arthur settles deep into our hearts, we are left to marvel at the invisible, unbreakable threads that bind us to the animal kingdom. Thank you for walking through this intensely emotional landscape with us today. If this story touched your soul and made you look at your own pets a little differently, please give this video a like, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the miraculous bonds of nature, and share this video with someone who truly understands the unspoken magic of animals. Before you go, we want to hear your voice. Have you ever experienced a moment where an animal intuitively knew something about your physical or emotional health before you did? Share your incredible stories in the comments below, and until next time, keep listening to the unspoken language of the heart.